Hello everyone. In my last video I covered the Erin Patterson story, the woman at the centre of the mushroom poisoning saga. For those unaware, you can go back and watch that video for the full story. For this video though, I just wanted to elaborate further on the supposed food dehydrator and some new information that I personally found quite intriguing. It was initially reported in Chubbo's version of events that she had used a combination of fresh button mushrooms that she'd purchased from a local supermarket and dried mushrooms that she'd bought months earlier from an Asian grocer in Melbourne, possibly in the Mount Waverley area. But because it was supposedly months ago, she couldn't remember exactly where. A couple of questions regarding this version of events seem to have gone unasked and unanswered by the media. If she had purchased already dried mushrooms, which she had in storage, why is there a food dehydrator even present in the story? There's nothing incongruous about owning a food dehydrator and buying dried mushrooms, but there is something incredibly incongruous about claiming that you'd used dried mushrooms purchased months earlier and disposing of a food dehydrator that you supposedly didn't use to dry the mushrooms served in the lunch of death. It's highly suggestive that the story about having purchased mushrooms months earlier is just another one of her lies, of which lying about the lunch of death is something she's already been caught out doing. Okay, so initially she had told detectives that she had disposed of the food dehydrator, quote, a long time ago. That also turned out to be a lie. Erin has given conflicting accounts of what happened to her food dehydrator. Cops immediately seized a food dehydrator from a tip, believed to have been used to prepare the mushrooms. Erin told police she had dumped her food dehydrator at a local tip a long time ago, but this week she admitted that was a lie. Erin said she was at the hospital with her kids discussing the food dehydrator when her ex-husband asked, "Is that what you used to poison them?" Worried she might lose custody of the couple's children, Erin said she then panicked and dumped the dehydrator at the tip. So one of the things I pointed out in my last video was that it doesn't logically follow that you would conclude that you might lose custody of your children because you owned a food dehydrator. It also doesn't logically follow that you would conclude that you might lose custody of your children because you used a food dehydrator to dry mushrooms if you knew that you'd done nothing wrong. You would only dump the dehydrator in an attempt to dispose of possible evidence. If you thought for one moment that there was nothing incriminating about the dehydrator, you wouldn't get rid of it. In fact, if you were innocent, you should be more likely to conclude that the dehydrator might just be the evidence that proves your innocence. Setting all that aside, it would appear that even her amended story about panicking at her ex-husband's accusation may also be a lie.
Our investigator on the ground is former Victorian detective Damien Marrett. He followed a number of leads, and they included Erin Patterson's disposal of the food dehydrator at the local refuse centre.
There's two tips. There's one in Kurumburra, which is 13 k's from Leongatha, and there's another tip in Coonawarra, but that's about half that distance. So she's decided to go to the Coonawarra tip. And on speaking with workers there, interestingly, without saying when did she come or anything like that, one of them stated to us that, I don't know because I wasn't working Saturday morning. Now, this is after...
Saturday morning? That's the morning of the lunch?
Yeah, which doesn't make sense. There was CCTV footage, so the police would have that and they can work out when it was.
Well, and there were other kitchen utensils we understand police sought in the dump.
What a lot of the workers said down there, because look, they've been told not to say anything to media. So they basically said the police were here on Tuesday looking for, I think it was microwave trays and other utensils. So, you know, obviously they're wondering what she did dump there and whether there's a chance she dumped other sort of kitchen utensils and things there.
So if what's just been reported there is true, then that obliterates her whole "I got rid of the food dehydrator because I panicked" bullshit. Moreover, it creates the following timeline. Cooked poisonous meal Friday night, disposed of all items used to prepare the meal Saturday morning before lunch of death was served, then served lunch of death. Surely, disposing of the food dehydrator and other kitchen utensils in the hours before the lunch was served is incredibly damning. It negates any argument on her part that the food dehydrator was dumped out of panic. It would indicate prior knowledge, premeditation, and an attempt to conceal evidence in that knowledge. There's just a couple of other things that are being talked about in the media that there aren't any details of yet. It's been reported that one of the deceased said stuff to one of the ambulance officers that was transporting her to the hospital that has been passed on to detectives, but the details of which haven't been disclosed yet. The other is what information Ian Wilkinson, the sole survivor, has been able to give to police. Anyway, that's all the updates I have for the time being, but I'll certainly do another video on this should anything new arise. I'm suspecting, though, that it won't be too long before she's charged with triple murder. It's my personal view that that's where this story is headed. Thanks for watching, everyone.